Hello and a very warm welcome back to Northwestern Models. Today I'm going to show you how to build the Malbrook Signal Box kit from Foreground Models. So first things first, obviously is going to be to open up the box, and I'm hoping that this is going to go together similar to the Hanford Crossing signal box which we did a couple of weeks ago. Because it's a similar sort of size, and opening the box you can see we've got bits of packaging and then all the parts in a separate plastic bag. Just get those out of the way. And opening up this inner packet, get everything out, and we've clearly got a large selection of parts, and once again the photographic colour sheets, which are the instruction sheets which tell you obviously how it all goes together. There's 3 pages of that. So we've got again lots of little bits, some nice brick effect pieces there, the window sheets, what look like they might be ridge tiles possibly, and then some side walls, inner walls even, the roof, stairs, which I imagine will go to a similar fashion, could be a chimney pot or something, wooden planking, window frames, more window frames, and exterior wooden planking for the top half. So I think we need to just put all these aside and just get the parts that we're actually going to need first, which according to the instructions is B's and A's, which are on these ones here. So we can put all these ones to one side, out of the way, over there. So to build this kit up, once again we're going to be using the Deluxe Materials Rocket Card Glue, which is of course available from our shop, and a craft knife. I think that's probably actually going to be all the tools we're going to actually need, apart from some scissors to cut out the excuse me, to cut out the windows. So let's get started. So we need B2, B3, A1 and A2. So B2, so I don't need that one actually. So the first instruction is basically to take out the 2 floors, which are these parts, and again it's got a cutout in the middle for if you wanted to fit a light. So I will do that for the lower one but not for the upper floor, because again I may decide to put in the signal box interior kit, which is available as well. So let's get these cut out. So I've cut out the 4 exterior walls and the 2 floors. So following the instructions, it suggests to build up B2, B3 and the 2 floors. So let's get started. So I think it goes like that, builds up like that, and then the floor, making sure it's the right way around. Where does that go? Go that way. That should end up something like that, I think, or maybe like that actually. I think it's that way, because we need to make sure we've got the little tab here for the I don't know, I was right the first time, that way around, with the little tab at the front, because the signal box door is at the back of the kit, so it goes on there somewhere like that, I believe. There we go. Yep. So you should end up with something like that, with then the front on as well. So let's start gluing this together. And again, just using the rocket card glue, you don't need masses of it. It's enough to hold the pieces in place. So again, just using the little flexible nozzle that comes with it to just help spread it out a bit more evenly. So, first side on, which is the back. Do make sure you get the floor pieces the correct way around, because that way it will actually all fit together as you want it to. So, put a glue in the corner. You may just, it is worthwhile just holding on to the pieces, just holding them upright once you've got them started, just to help the positioning of them, and try not to do what I've just done there, is let it all fall apart. So just hold that together like so. Then I'm just going to insert the floor in there as well, and what I can do now is I will glue the floor in from above once I've got the other two sides on, once this has dried up a little bit more, which hopefully it will do relatively quickly. This glue does set fairly quickly, so it shouldn't take too long. You should be able to leave it after a minute or so whilst you glue up the next couple of pieces. Like so. So there we are, we've got 3 sides and 2 floors on, so all that's left now is the front edge, which, looking at it, doesn't actually have a lot holding it on the front, so that's going to need a little bit of glue just on the bottom tabs just down there. So it's like I say, once these have dried a little bit, I am then going to glue it all in from above, glue in around inside here, which will then give it some strength as well. Start spreading some. He says, let's start spreading some glue around in here to hold it all together now. Once the glue has set, the model will become very stable, very strong. It does just take a little while occasionally for the glue to set, but once it's there, it's pretty much there. So I'm now going to put that to one side, because the next instruction is to cut out the acetate windows. So I'm going to crack on with that whilst the glue is drying for those. So I've now got all the windows cut out. Now there's three different sizes. You've got a very long one, which is probably going to be the big long window across the front of the box, a slightly shorter one for the two lower windows, and then three matching sizes for the sides and the back. So to glue these in place, I'm going to use the Deluxe Materials Glue and Glaze, because it just dries dead clear, and this is what it essentially is designed for. So I'll just get all these glued in place. So now we've got all the windows in, the next stage, following the instructions, is to start fitting some of the brickwork. The brickwork is obviously on the red sheet, and it is reasonably obvious where each piece goes. Plus, you will notice that all the bricks interlock on the ends in a fashion like finger joint like that, which should all connect all the way around. Plus you've got the locating tabs along the bottom as well. So I'll get these cut out, and then I'll stick them on with the rocket card glue, and we should then have something which is starting to very much look like a signal box. So now with the brickwork fixed to the bottom half of the box, you can see that we've clearly got spaces for a couple of doors, one there and one upstairs here. You've also got space for two windows as well, and you'll notice on this side there's a little hole around here in the brickwork, and that will be to accommodate the steps later on. So do watch out for those pieces there. So the next stage is actually to make up the two doors, and to do that we're going to need the two white pieces, and if you saw the other video for the other signal box, you will I did go through this there, but again I'll just do it again here for the sake of it. The doors and the windows are made up in two parts. The doors in particular, you've got a back piece which is the full square, and then you have an opened out piece here which sits on top. It's very simple. That you just nick out where the tabs are on each of them. So, put the fret to one side, same with the others. Like so, onto one side. And then it is a case of, quite simply, a little bit of the rocket card glue on the back side of one of the pieces with the detail on, and just spread a bit of the glue along the lengths like so, and then you can very easily stick the backing piece on, pick it up and line it all up. And if you wanted, you could get a peg and just put the peg on just to help hold it all in place while the glue goes off, and then just do the same with the other one. Like so we've got 2 doors. Just peg that up for a minute. Excuse me. Now, because this glue doesn't take particularly long to go off, I'm going to fit the first one that we did, which was this one, and this one is going to go in this hole here at the bottom of the signal box. And all we need to do is spread a bit of glue around the inner framework, this is where the door will sit, on the bottom as well, and you very carefully just drop it in and get it to stand upright. It will go in. There we are. That one is actually in. And then you just leave that to dry. But now the other side, the other door should now also be dry. So I'm going to turn the box around and then just do the same again. Just glue up around the 2 sides and the bottom of the doorway, making sure you get plenty on there, and then just drop the door into place like so. And once the glue goes off, it will hold everything in place a bit neater. But there we go. So that is the 2 doors in, ready to go. So the next step is actually to start fitting some of the wooden cladding sheets. Now, there they are. Now the wonderful thing about these kits is, because they're laser cut, you can get all this lovely wooden etched effect built in, which is really nice to have. And I think it's important to definitely follow the instructions to get these pieces on in the right order, because there are some pieces which are slightly oversized because they need to be, but it's important that you get them right, so do follow the instructions. So I'm going to start taking them out and fitting them up, and then we'll move on to fitting the windows. So, as you can see, the cladding is all on the upper part of the signal box, and we have got this extra bit on the side here. Now, don't cut this off because this forms part of the stairway to the signal box upper door, so make sure you don't cut it off. It is supposed to be like that. So the next stage is actually to start fitting the windows. Now, if you remember from the other video with the other signal box kit, you'll notice, or hopefully you'll remember, that there's an outer frame and an inner frame for the windows, and obviously these then stick into the openings on the signal box. Now the instructions suggest to assemble these off the box and then fit them in, but I've always found it easier to assemble everything in situ on the actual building, because it's always going to be in the right place and it's a bit less fiddly. So I'll get these larger ones cut out first, and then the inner ones for them as well, and then we'll move on to the 2 smaller ones, which is the framework for which is shaped to fit the arches of the lower course of the brick here on the bottom half of the signal box. So I'll assemble all these onto the box and hopefully you'll be able to see and understand exactly what we mean. So hopefully now you can see that we've got all the window frames all cut out, so they're all now ready to be fitted. Now I'm going to use the glue and glaze glue again, purely because we're working near the glazing, and as you will have seen if you've seen the previous video, it's very simple, just using the fine nozzle tip which comes with it. Just put a bit of glue down the side of each of the window surrounds on the building. You can then fit in the outer glaze, the outer framework, and that should then push out some of the glue into the window, so that you can then fit the inner framework, and everything should then be fitted. And that's, you know, one window very quickly put in place. To me, this is the easiest way of doing it, rather than trying to assemble the frames off the building and then struggling to get them to go in and stick in place, because I could just see each time I've tried to do it the other way, it's just such almost an impossible job to do. So there we are, I've now got the two bottom windows in, so I'll now continue and do all the upper ones in exactly the same way, and then we're ready to go on to the next stage. So now, with all the glazing fitted, the next piece to go in is the door surround for the lower half. Now that's piece F7, which is on the board with the, what looks like the chimney pots. So just cut that out with your craft knife, and using the rocket card glue, again just gluing the gap in the brickwork between the brickwork and the door. Just down both sides, and that should be sufficient enough to then fit the framework in around the door like so. It is one of the wonderful joys of laser cut kits, is that everything in theory all slots together. But that's the end of sheet 1 of the instructions. So now on to page 2, and the first thing is going to be to build up what looks like the wooden framework for the top of the signal box steps here. Just got to find one of the other pieces which I can't quite see just yet, which is G1. Just search through various parts, and it could be on there, which it is. So you'll need part G1 and G3 and 2 and 3. So let's quickly cut these out. That's that part, and we'll need all 3 of these parts. G4, which is the outer one, so that's that finished with. So it says to assemble parts G2, G3 and G1 together. So these will slot together like so, and then attach on to this piece like that. So you'll end up with a half a box type shape like that at the end. So use the rocket card glue just a little bit along the bottom edge of these to give it somewhere to glue to, and I'm also going to put a little bit along the edge of these as well, where the tongue and groove fits in together. So let's put that one on first. Hopefully that will stay dry for long enough. So then put that piece in next to it. So we end up with, like I say, half a box type shape, and it's all glued together like so. So now that is fairly solid together, just looking ahead, we will actually need part G5, which is also on the same part as G1. I'm just going to find the cutouts for it. And drop that out. Excuse me. So this now slots into the gap between the brickwork and the door of the upper floor, and the two slots in the footboards fit underneath the wooden planking at the back, and obviously the back piece glues onto there, so there's quite a bit to glue on here. So I'll put the first bit in there, just above the bricks, up beneath the door in that little gap, and then I'll spread a bit of glue on the back of here. This is possibly where I'm going to be wanting a peg to help hold it in place. So I'll just get that in underneath, slide it up so it fits in place, and then just get my peg, and I'm just going to pop it in along the top edge there, just to help hold everything in place for a minute. Now the next piece to go in is this funny sort of doorway shaped piece, which is on the same piece as the G1 piece, and this seemingly just slots in over the end, making sure that the top of this side lines up with the top of the wooden planking. So just put a bit of glue on, and the back, and then down the edge of there. This is quite fiddly actually, this. So that goes in there, and the top piece slots into the little gap at the top of the barge boards, the ends of the wooden planking. It all slots together up there. So I'm hoping you can see that quite well. So then the last part for this is to fit the outer wooden cladding to this side, so I'm just going to glue the back of that. Like so, and then this should slot on and cover everything up on the outside there, and I'm just going to move the peg over to that side just to allow it to grab it all a bit better. So it should end up with something that looks a little bit like that. So whilst that's drying, we can move on to the next step, which appears to be building up the first lot of steps. So you're going to need to go back to this dark brown piece with all the step boards on, and excuse me, you need parts H1 to H4 and J1 to J4, which are all the little angled pieces on here. So let's cut those out. And just get the pieces out. Come on, out your foot. There we go. So that's those pieces all out now. So what we need to do with these now is they need to be glued back to each other, and essentially you've got two sets of steps, but I'll do them one at a time because it just makes it easier. So I know that for instance these two will go back to back because you're going to need to reverse one of them, so you've got the unetched side and then you want the one with the etched side to sit on top of it like so, so you end up with a nice set of slots where the steps go, going up the inside but with the detail then on both sides. So I'm actually going to glue the side with the step cutouts on, so that way we don't have unnecessary glue in places we don't need it. I'm just going to run the glue along the edges. Like so, and then stick its partner on top, and then you must make sure that they're all lined up nicely and that they're together. So again, you may want a peg just to help hold it in place for a few minutes while you do the next one excuse me, in the exact same way. It does tell you in the instructions which pieces you need. The part numbers are on the frets themselves, so if you wanted to do it, take them out piece by piece, you can do. As it may make it a bit easier, especially if you've never built one of these kits before. But as I've built a few of them now, I sort of know how they go together, so I can skip ahead a few steps to make things a bit quicker and easier for me. So that must go with that one. So let's glue that up there. So put that on the outside, line it all up. And peg it together. And then finally the last one must go like that. I'm actually going to, now seeing how it goes, I can glue the bits I need to on this one. So at times it is worthwhile doing a little dry run first before you glue anything together, just to see how it does go together, or how it's supposed to go together. It does make things a little bit easier at times. So it goes together like that. So that's very good. Right. So final peg. So the next stage is to actually start cutting out the steps, which are parts H5. So let's pop those out first. Now the steps are in a sort of T shape with an etched line down the middle to make it look like there's 2 planks per step. So it's important that you get these the right way around and the right way up when you start putting them together into the banisters, because what you need to do is make sure that the part with the essentially the top of the T that's what goes into the slot in the banister rail part, because it then just makes everything nice and equal along the length of it. So to glue these together, I'm just going to put a blob of glue in the gap where they go. I'm just going to do about 3 at a time to get started. And make sure you've got the step the right way up, and just place it in the first one, and then follow on each one in succession. Hopefully I'll make a slightly better job of this one than I did of the steps in the other video. If you have seen that, you'll remember that I got it all together and then I just accidentally nudged it and it all fell apart. So I'm just going to hopefully this will go a bit better. So I'll just put these other steps in now, and I'm actually going to leave them to dry for a minute or so. Just put them to one side, and then I can do the other steps as well. Let's get those pegs out of the way, which the shorter steps have the 2 J5 pieces, but they go together exactly the same way. Just pop them out. It does actually say to fit these when it's all on the signal box, but I don't think that's a particularly good idea. So I'm going to fit them to the outside rail for now. First, just in exactly the same way. There, so that they can be drying. So now that these have had a little chance to dry on the first set, I'm now going to glue all the gaps in the other handrail. So then hopefully we will be able to stick the steps together. Now this is a fiddly part, so do take your time with it. So it will all go together, you do just need to take your time. Once you start getting one in, generally they'll all follow each other and now I'm just going to leave that to one side to dry off. So that went together a lot better than the other one. Excuse me. But we can't really do much else now until these have dried, apart from cut out the last piece, which is piece I, which is also on that the same board as all the other parts are on there, because that's going to be the midway platform between the upper stairs and the lower stairs as it bends around. Right. So, shall we be brave and fit it? Yes, let's be brave and have a go and see how it fits in. So, well, that is together. We know that it's going to slot in to the bottom half of the little side cabin to the signal box and work its way along. So all I'm going to do is put a bit of glue in the gap that are left in the framework, there and there, because hopefully what will happen is as this goes in, it'll slot into the gap that's left, and everything should then land in the right place. Now, as I said, this will probably be quite a fiddly little job, so I'm just going to get my craft knife just to help me ease some parts in together, and lo and behold, it's all gone in quite happily there, and nudge it up from the underside. So, square it up. Now, I am going to put a little bit more glue just on the underside, because one, nobody's going to see it there, and two, it's just going to add a little bit of strength to everything. Like so. So once this piece is dried on here, which shouldn't take too long, we can then fit this eye piece in, which goes in to the little slot at the bottom of the brickwork, which hopefully you'll be able to see there. And it slots in there. So I'm actually going to glue that in next. Just put a bit of glue in at the end of there. So, like that. Now it will obviously want to try and fall over, so I'm just going to put it on its side, which then means we can get the other set of steps in. Now these will also slot into some smaller holes in the brickwork, which you'll be able to see. So I'm just going to put some glue in to those. And then drop them into there. Just the floor of that. So hopefully we'll be able to see there now that we've got a few steps all coming together now. So the last piece to go in is the other banister rail from the other side, which will slot in here like so. And then it is a case of just lining everything up and just applying a little bit more glue in the gaps. just to help hold everything together. And I'm just going to adjust a few bits with the craft knife. This one there. What you should end up with is a nice set of steps. So I'm just going to glue in a bit more on the bottom, just to hold that little platform in place. So again, you can glue it from the underside because nobody's going to see the glue there. And that should then be that little job done. So we've now got a nice little stairway leading up to the signal box. So just looking ahead at the next job is actually to fit the little roof to the top of the stairway here, which is on the sheet with all the roof tiles, quite conveniently. So I'll just undo that, and again rocket card glue just spread across the tops of the pieces on here. Will then hold all that nicely in place. On top of there, and just finish that little bit off quite nicely. Right, so that's that bit done. So put that to one side for a while just to harden off. The next piece is actually to fit the outer wooden framework, which is on this other brown piece. It's basically the finishing off framework which goes around the outside of the signal box, the wooden framework area there. And again, just follow the instructions and stick it on, and it's nice and easy to do. So I'll get these cut out and start sticking them on. Hopefully you'll be able to see now that the signal box is really coming together, because we've now got some really nice cladding around, and it really looks the part of a signal box. The next stage is to build the inner roof, and to do that we need the 3 truss parts which are on these slightly thicker pieces, and the 2 inner roofs which again are on these slightly thicker pieces. So with these, generally you can just push them out, which makes it a little bit easier because it's a bit more solid than some of the other parts. I can now get rid of that one. And all we need to do is making sure that we have one of them in place, and make sure you have it the right way around. Is essentially we assemble the trusses into the little gaps that are in the roof space. We glue them in and then flip it over and put the other side on there, so we have a basic roof shape. So I'll do that and then we're on to the next stage. So I've now got all the trusses in, and do make sure you get these the right way around, because there's two different designs. The centre one has little tabs which come outside, and the other two just come straight out the bottom, and that's so that when you come to test fit the inner roof, it should slot in to the little tabs and pieces quite nicely inside and line up. So I'm just going to, we need to actually put it in, because the next stage is to fit the roof tiles on. So I'm just going to push that in a little bit further. Now it does say not to glue the trusses and the roof into the box, and I think that's a good idea, because if you wanted to add some extra detail inside a little bit later on, you then have the option to be able to do that. So with the roof now in, now cut out the main roof from its fret. Like so. And you should take note that the piece that's labelled L2 has a little cutout on one end. Now that is so that it can go past the roof or the little side entrance to the signal box. So L2 is the back one. So to glue this on, again it's finger joints across the top, like so. But I'm just going to put the glue on the inner roof part of the framework. Just get a good amount on there, all over it. So that the roof has a good chance of sticking, and then place that on. So it's more or less up to the ridge line, and then very quickly do the same with the back side of it. So then that should go on there, and remember it should all dovetail and finger joint itself together at the top, like so, and make sure you've got the right piece on the back. So you can hold that in place just whilst the glue goes off, and once it's sort of staying by itself, you should then be able to leave it to one side to go off properly, which hopefully it will. I'm just going to add, just lifting up again, I'm just going to squeeze a bit more glue in there and press back down again. Excuse me. So like I say, when you do get to the stage where you can leave it on its own, it's really quite good. Still not having it quite up the front yet. But at least you can see that it is now looking very much like a signal box and looking rather smart as well. So now I am actually going to leave this to one side. The front of the roof is just coming up here a bit, but I can get a bit more glue in a bit later, and if I'm able to take the roof off, which hopefully I'll be able to get some clamps on there and really clamp it in place, which will be very useful. So the last thing to make is going to be the chimney for it. So this is where we need the final few parts off the remaining frets that you should have left over. We start with what must be like an inner core of it. We just glue these together. Like so. And I'm going to just clamp these together. So let's get a little clamp, which will then hold it all together and pop it to one side while we cut out the brickwork. Again, with this brickwork, it is fairly obvious which way around it goes, but do follow the instructions to tell you which pieces to start with. Get them all out, as it will make the job a little bit easier. To one side. Excuse me. Because you should have two side pieces which have got an angled shape at the bottom, which will obviously match the profile of the roof, and you then have a long straight piece and a short straight piece, which obviously go in the inner and the outer. And essentially, just looking at the instructions quickly, you just slot it all together around the little former. So now it's had a couple of minutes to dry. Let's start adding a bit of glue around it. So, perhaps should start with one of the side pieces, because that way we know where it's got to line up with. Pop one on, and then a little piece. It's going to be that way around. This is quite a little bit fiddly. Yes. So when you come to put the roof, the chimney together, sorry, you must make sure that the straight pieces, they have a little extra brick at one end. That must be at the top. It's important that's at the very top, because that's what holds the capping piece in place for then your chimney pot to sit on the top of it. And it is quite fiddly to get together this little chimney, but it does go, and you should end up with a nice square stack at the end, which looks something a little bit like that. So the next piece is on this little grey one. And as you can see, you've got this base piece which has two square holes and a single round hole in it, and then a square piece with a round hole in it as well. And the first piece you want out of these is the smaller, the larger piece actually, with the two square holes in, so that they can line up with the two square tabs on the top of the chimney pot. So I'm just going to put a bit of glue on the top of there to make it a bit easier. So then pop that into place. Oop. And again, I'm just going to get a peg just to hold this, if I can. Just to keep everything sort of upright. And the last couple of pieces that we need are bits for the chimney pot, which is piece M8. Should be 2 of those, which are the main part of the pot. Just to poke them out, and then the actual cap of the pot, which is on the brick type sheet. Put that over to one side. So then we can stick the square piece with the hole in on the top of the chimney, on top of the other square piece we've just put on with the 2 square slots in, and line it up in the centre so that it's nice and neat and square and tidy. Like so. And then in the hole in the middle, put a little bit of glue around, and then put one of the small chimney pot type pieces in. And then we add a little bit more glue on top of that, very carefully, to put the other one on top of that, and to make a slightly taller chimney. And then finally we crown it off with the capping of the chimney pot from the little red piece. Go on like so, and just make sure it's all nicely lined up. It looks nice and good. And try not to drop it like I've just done. I'm actually going to put it back in the peg just to hold it while it goes off. A bit more glue, it seems to be falling apart. It is obviously not part of the plan. And everything up on there. So that's the chimney ready to be fitted. So now I'm just going to actually see if I can pull the lid off. Oh good, I can. So just going to ease the roof off, and because it's now in place, I'm just going to put a little bit more glue in where it's just lifting a tad. And what I'll be able to do now, because I can actually get to it, is get a peg on there and get it so it's going to clamp it all up in place. I'm actually going to do that all the way around, just clamp it in place. It just stops it all moving around, which means it's actually really got a good grip of it before we add any more detail to it. So whilst those bits are drying, the actual very last, well, second to last bit will be to, apart from fitting the ridge tiles, which did come with the pack, which I was quite surprised at because most of these kits don't come with ridge tiles. will be to make up the name board. Now, as with the other signal box, you get a selection of name boards on the instruction sheet. We've got Malbrook Junction Signal Box, which would be the one we're using, Northbury box, Lewis Bridge East box, Howard and Riverside, and Revel Well signal box. But I'm actually going to use the Malbrook signal box because that's the name of the kit, and because we're going to be having this on display at the exhibitions that we attend, it just makes sense to have it as the name of the kit, so that people know what they're looking to buy. You know, so if they see the kit that this made up and go, oh right, so I want one of those, it means they can get the right products that they want a bit easier. I'll just cut that out very carefully. Some scissors. Just trim it up a little bit. And luckily with these kits there's a nice space across the front of the box here. I'm just going to use a bit of the rocket card glue and just spread it on the back of the name. And then very carefully position it nice and neatly in the middle. Which will finish the front of the box off quite nicely, like that. So there we are, the name is now on the signal box as well. So before I refit the roof, I'm going to put some of these ridge tiles on. Is that any longer? So I need an extra one. So with the ridge tiles, unfortunately there's no score mark on the underside with which to fold them. So I'm going to create one myself with a ruler and a craft knife and just sort of go right down the middle and be able to just hold it in place with the rule, and just very gently score it down the back, and it'll at least produce a line. I've not quite got it straight, admittedly, so I'll just rescore a little bit more of it and purposefully try and fold it on that line. So, and then once we have scored it, we should then be able to fold it down the middle a bit easier. He says. I think I might actually score it from the other side. It might make it a lot easier actually, as then it will split across. Yes, that looks a bit easier. Yes, there we go. And hopefully be able to see that it is now sort of folding generally in half along the width of the ridge tiles, and just do the extra one. And again, I'm just going to use the rocket card glue, bring that back in, to just put a dribble of glue down the inside of the ridge tile. All the way down. pop it on. The glue is then in the right place. Just a little bit of glue for the last one. Which is there. Now, as I said, it's unusual for these kits to actually come with ridge tiles in them, so that was quite a nice, pleasant surprise. So I'm not sure whether every single kit of these that we take out will have the ridge tiles in, but you can buy the ridge tiles separately from us. We do sell them as well. So that's the roof now done, apart from the chimney pot. So let's just refit the roof onto the signal box. Now it's all glued down in the right place. Get it all in nice and snug, like so. So the only thing left to do is to fit the chimney pot, which by tradition of signal boxes needs to go at the back where there's no window directly next to it. So of course they never had the stove there, so I'm just going to go between the 3 panels at the back and about 2 courses of tiles up from the bottom, and just hold it in place just while the glue goes off, and that is then the signal box finished, like so. So there we are. That is the Malbrook Junction Signal Box. Well, I hope that you enjoyed that video. In total it's taken me about 2.5 hours to build this kit, so it's easily done in an afternoon on a weekend or over a couple of evenings during the week. It was, as with many of the foreground building kits, it just slots together really well, and it's a really nice kit of a typical signal box. So it could be perfectly ideal for somewhere on your model railway. Anyway, we hope that you've enjoyed the video, and if you have, don't forget to give us a like. Also, please do hit the subscribe button, because we've got another model railway video for you again next week. So until then, happy modelling.